we'll be talking about the recent floods affecting Nigerians. So the recent flood that has swept across several states in Nigeria have left a trail of devastation, claiming precious lives and destroying properties worth millions of naira. The images of submerged houses, displaced families, and ravaged communities are heart-wrenching and unsettling. As we mourn the loss of lives and properties, we are also faced with a critical question on how we can prevent or mitigate such disasters in the future. So today, we will be convening a panel of experts to explore flood prevention and mitigate strategies in Nigeria, from infrastructure development and urban planning to early warning systems and emergency response. We will examine the most effective measures to reduce the risks of flooding and protect our own communities. Joining us in the studio is Abdulrahaman Mohammed, an engineer and director, FCT Emergency Management Department. Also, we have Professor Sani Abubakar. He is a former Director General, Nigeria Meteorological Agency, Nimet. And also we have via Zoom, Dr. Murtala Mohammed, a lecturer at Bayero University, Kano. He is a researcher on climate change and urban studies. And this is what, of course, these are the panel that we will be talking about to find possible solutions to these recurring problems and work towards a safer and more resilient Nigeria. Good morning, gentlemen.
Good morning. Happy to meet you. Good morning.
Of course, it's good to have you. Let's start with you, of course, engineer. Give us an overview of this flood situation happening in our country from your own perspective.
Thank you very much. Flood generally happen whenever there's rain. Everybody knows that almost when there's rain, there's flood. That's when you talk of flood. And this flood, it happens that before it rains, a lot of information will have gone around that the Nimet will give us the organization that will give us data on rain. This rain will be like this. The volume of the rain that you'll be expecting, all encompassing will be given to you. And every state is about to key into their program, collect data from them, and make sure that they use the data. So, and you discover that we are not using the data. That's why the flood is. Otherwise, every year there must be a prediction. Every year, Nimet will call you. All the stakeholders come and listen. This is what we have predicted, but some people take it for granted. They take it for granted, and that's it.
I mean, we'll dive into that, engineer. Taking it for granted has really cost us lives,
yes, and
properties. But then let's talk to you, Professor. What are the most affected region when it comes to this flood, this current one that we're facing, and what are the primary causes apart from the warnings that the Nimet normally give Nigerians?
Thank you very much. You see, we are now in a very, very difficult situation all over the world. The climate has become greatly unpredictable. It has changed drastically. The pattern of receipt of the rainfall, which the engineer has mentioned, has greatly been altered. The situation is such that large amount of rain tends to be received over relatively smaller amount of time. And the implication of this, it means the surface will most times be confronted with large amount of water, more than it can contain. And when that situation happens, it means the water will have to accumulate. The other dimension of it is that in the development process, we have not really been taking care of those eventualities, meaning that if we are constructing houses, if we are constructing roads and other infrastructure, we have not been making allowance for such type of scenario. That is, in the event that amount of water we are receiving becomes greater than this, what is likely going to happen? That is, conveyance structure, structures that will convey, that will evacuate the excess amount of rain. For instance, if you look at what is happening in the country now, the focus given by the Nigerian Meteorological Agency is showing that particularly in the drier part of the country and the semi-humid part of the country, we are expecting thunderstorm activities within the last couple of days. In fact, the predictions are showing that between Sunday and Tuesday, we are going to have intense thunderstorm activities within these particular areas. The implication, a thunderstorm is like an unusual rainfall event that is characterized by heavy rains, by lightning, by thunder, by falling ice, and so on. When you have those kind of thunderstorm activities, always expect high frequency of rain, especially late evening, early morning rain, like today in the morning. I believe my colleague engineer and I, we face a lot of things here before leaving our houses. These are the kind of things that is happening. The situation now is so serious that you recover that drier part of the country that we are expecting. We traditionally used to experience smaller amount of rain and now having more rain than when we are receiving in the more humid part. The semi-humid part like Abuja, part of Nasarawa, and Adama and others, now they are receiving more than what we are receiving in the more humid part of the country. So you have a situation whereby we have large amount of water that we are confronted with. This large amount of rain that falls, which is giving rise to large amount of water on the surface, coupled with the fact that in our development we have not made provision for those structures that will like evacuate the rain on the emergency. That becomes really a problem.
Indeed.
So you are always it's like it's a very helpless situation we are faced with now.
Helpless. That is what we feel like. But then hence the reason for panel like this to be done to find possible solution. Now let's talk to Dr. Mohammed, who is joining us via Zoom from Kano. Doctor, we've seen what has happened in Kano recently. Can you give us the impact of this flood and how it had affected the residents of Kano State?
Thank you for actually, when you look at it, even right now it is raining in Kano. I just find somewhere to park and then join you there because it is raining heavily. You can see that although it rained a lot in Kano, but the situation is worse in Jigawa State because most of the water here in Kano moved down to Jigawa, because Jigawa is located at the downstream of River Kano and Hadeja Jama'ari River, which are the major system that goes through Kano. You can see that because of a lot of activities, particularly along the river channels, a lot of communities were affected. Many were displaced in Kano and Jigawa simply because you have an excess water over a short period of time. And additionally, you have a lot of activities because of the poor handling of our environment, particularly when it comes to urbanization and agriculture. Many waterways have been blocked, and because of that, you can see that there is both urban flood as well as flood that affect agricultural areas. And this is really serious because we are losing lives and properties, and that will amount to our economy as well.
All right. Thank you so much, Doctor. We'll get back to you, even though the volume was a bit low. I'm trying to even talk to my directors. I don't know if they can really hear me or connect with me. But then, yeah, let's come back to the studio to talk to Engineer about this situation. Engineer, this flood is something that is really affecting us. And earlier when Professor was talking, he made mention of how much even though we know this things is going to happen, but then we still don't have enough on how to handle it. So let's talk about the early warning. I think the Nimet will be better on this one. But let's talk about preparedness. Would you say Nigerians are truly prepared when it comes to how to handle this situation? Because we know that when you prepare, at least, even though you might not be, when it comes to climate change, you might not really outsmart the climate, but at least it would cushion some level of effect. So would you say Nigeria, the government and the people are truly prepared when it comes to flood?
Thank you very much. To me, I don't think we are prepared, because every year we get information from the agencies that we have created, and the government have to make sure that every local government, and state government make use of this information. There is nobody following up on these informations for them to make sure they use it. I think the agencies need to create some kind of enforcement to make sure that, because the flood in Nigeria is not something that is that's about to happen in the first place. We have everything in place that we can contain all the water.
Do we have?
We have everything in place. We have the local government. In the local government, you can talk to people. They have NEMA. We have state emergency management, which every year, before the rain, we collect the data from them and we go to people and tell them that this is what they said. The rain is going to so in this place. Take for example, I was just telling somebody in very close to Wuse. I went there to observe something, and you discover that where the water is running, where the water is, the runoff of water, because of this construction, they went and block it. Then they come and pack the thing away. So I think we need enforcement. I think we need to do more in the area of enforcement, because the data is there, the agencies are there telling us every year. They will call everybody will call, come. This is what we have discovered. This is what they have discovered. If you have problem, you tell them. They also give you information and okay, do it like this, do it like this. Nobody is following up. Nobody is using the data, and that's why we are facing the problem we are facing.
Indeed. Professor, let's talk about this data now. As much as we know we have the local government, we know that there is still a large number of people that don't have access to this information. And it has been a very difficult situation. The media sometimes have even had to penetrate to all this local environment to tell them, to educate them on these implications. But currently, what is the assessment and what should Nigeria expect when it comes to regional rain and how this flood would happen, would affect the country? Give us more specific figures and cases of studies to illustrate what part of Nigeria would face more rain and which one would be wiser for you to move out and evacuate a particular location.
Okay, thank you very much. You see, at the beginning of the year, when Nimet released its prediction of the rainfall trends in the country, the expected trends in the year 2024, one thing became very, very prominent, very pronounced, that we are expecting to have a higher amount of rain in areas where we don't used to receive those kind of amount of rain before. The rainfall, the amount of rain we are going to receive over most areas in the country, but particularly in the drier and humid part of the country, large amount of rain will be received within a smaller period of time. These were the predictions that were shown. And what you need to know here now is the bulk of the rain that is being received by rivers in the southern part of the country is generated, the runoff is generated by what accumulates largely in the northern part of the country, conveyed through River Niger and River Benue, and then it will go down.
Okay.
So the implication of this, it means even if the southern part, even if assuming the southern part of the country are not going to also receive high amount of rain, we should definitely anticipate that once if we receive very high amount of rain in the northern part of the country that are characteristically drier, and also in the subhumid part of the country, that is in central part of the country, it means large amount of runoff will be conveyed to the southern part of the country. Then it means flooding should be expected in this drier part of the country, as the prediction has shown, and it will also, there will be consequence of that flooding, because it's like cumulative effect. The rain will accumulate and follow through River Niger and Benue, and then the southern part of the country will receive their own share of the flooding later. So this is what the prediction has shown.
So
and
currently the prediction is showing that
that's what
every part of Nigeria will
every part
face
of the Nigeria,
that.
but the northern part of the country at the beginning of the rainy year, the northern part of the country will be more a space problem, and then as the water continue to flow and accumulate down towards the end of August, September, October, that is when the southern part of the country will experience theirs more.
Okay.
So that was what the prediction showed, and already now we have started seeing that as early as July, when the rain, because the rain, like you know, started in June in drier part of the country. As early as July, we have already been started witnessing incidences of flood in northern part of the country. In Abuja, the basic challenge with FCT Emergency Management Agency has always been contended is this treadmill problem of their own. I believe it has been given them so much headache. I believe the engineer will bear me witness. As early as July, Treadmore Estate was already flooded. That is when the rain has already started. So the challenge here now is, it's like Nigerians have already been forewarned by the data that has been released. When the Nigerian Meteorological Agency released their own data, the Nigerian Hydrological Services Agency, they came up and complemented. They did their own, they analyzed the data from Nigerian Meteorological Agency, look at the characteristics of the rivers within the country, and they said, yes, flooding is going to be everywhere, but particularly areas that are like that are closer to the waterways are going to be more vulnerable. So therefore, the expectation, the advice that NISA, for instance, gave is that evacuations should take place before even the rain starts. That is, people that are staying in those areas that are traditionally, that every year they become flooded, let them, if they can't live permanently, at least now that rains have come, let them carry their things and move away. So that maybe if the rain is, everything stops, maybe like say towards November or so, they can come back. It's just a matter of 4 months. But you know, this preparedness, that is always the problem. They have been warned, they have been told to. In fact, at a stage, for instance, FCT Management Agency wanted to get the FCT administration to approve that Treadmore Estate should be closed completely. But I believe they were seriously resistant. I believe the engineer will bear me witness. They had wanted to get the estate closed. When that could not happen, they advised that houses that are very close to the waterways should ensure being evacuated, getting evacuated. That is at the beginning of the rainy season. This advice was given by them, and they were over the air, over the media. They have been very proactive. In fact, if you go to different parts of the country, FCT, they place notice. But it's like people, they don't listen. They probably believe that forget them, they are trying to raise false alarm. But they have already been vindicated. Already when the Treadmore flooding took place, many cars, many people were washed away in this July, which was really very catastrophic. So this is just an illustration. In different parts of the country, that is actually what happened. The warnings have been given, data has been given, has been released. Part of the problem is that downscaling of this information is a bit problematic. What I mean by downscaling, that is when the agencies, when they release this information, the grassroots, especially at the local government, should actually take up the matter. When they take up the matter, they should engage the people. People that are at the flood risk areas, maybe they should have the means by either convincing them, or in fact, the local government, they have the power, because they have the power to approve development. The state government have the power to approve development. They can cancel some of the development activities already taking place there now, so that the kind of enforcement the engineer is saying can now become a reality, so that the people can be forced, if they can't live permanently, as soon as it is certain period of the month, you stop it. FCT Emergency Management is doing very good job. When you are going to Galadimawa, there is a particular road there now that during rainy season, that flood becomes a risk area. So FCT Emergency Management, in the past, they used to advise people to avoid the road. But people were not listening. At a stage, I think a director also in the civil service was washed away, because he was rushing to go to the airport. He was caught up by this early morning flooding, and then he was washed away.
Really sad situation.
Yes, exactly. So what FCT Emergency Management is, they use the power given of them. They went and permanently block the road as soon as, I think, early May or June. So through this way now, they have like made it impossible for people to pass. And the people have abandoned that area now. And I want to believe the FCT emergency may not open the road until maybe around October or November. So these are the kind of things that
Professor,
we are
I have
saying.
a lot of questions, honestly, for owning up to that. But let's talk to our guest via Zoom before we come back to the studio. Doctor, talking about all of this, we're trying to look for possible solutions. And Professor here pointed out the roles of local government. You are a lecturer. You deal with people. Based on all of this being known, would you say that the local government is doing their own job right in order to make citizens leave and evacuate the areas? And are people concerned about leaving their homes to God knows where?
Of course, when you look at as a rider at what Prof has said, you see that at national level, we have a good prediction system, and people are well informed at national level, especially prediction given by Nimet and later by NASA as regards the flood. But you see that at the local government level, that's where you have most of the problems. Let me give you a typical example, a case study of what happened in a state in northern Nigeria, whereby people have constructed their houses along the areas which is meant for the water to pass. And rather than asking them to leave, the local government decide just to bring a machine whereby they'll be using it to take away the water. But you know that when it comes to flood, it's not something that you can just do it that way. You need to take a good measure to address this problem. Of course, local governments are a bit incapacitated because of the issues to do with their financial autonomy. But at the same time, you see that they are not doing much when it comes to addressing the flood case. To me, in Nigeria, we make it a rule that every year we just wait for the flood to happen, and then we decide to give people the relief rather than taking measures. Already it has been predicted that these are the areas to be affected, which is about 51% of the country is at risk of flood based on the prediction given. And many local governments are to be affected, about 290 something local government in the country. And we have the map, we have the result of. So what we should do is to take adequate address this situation. Found not only at the local government level, the state are also very much in the picture, because you see that the bulk of our flood is urban flood, and when it comes to approving development centers, it is the responsibility of the state government rather than local government. So when you look at this, you see that the administrators are really not helping the matters when it comes to addressing this issue of flood. People have no choice, and they are less aware. Therefore, they will go and make any sort of development, on the waterways. And the flood is something that will just come, and once it has come, you can do little to save the situation. So it is better you always avoid flooded area and then take measures before it happens, rather than wait for it to happen and then you start thinking of the way forward.
Indeed. Thank you so much, Doctor, for that one. Let's come back to you, Engineer, talking about the FCT's, emergency management department, your own things that you put in place in order to avoid this. Just like Professor mentioned earlier, that we saw the Treadmore situation happen. So how can we improve? When we point at the rural area, we point on the state government and the local government's responsibility. What about the urban area? What are the planning and infrastructure put in place to reduce the flood risks from what happened last year?
Okay. Just as a professor said, in our own case, immediately it is around March, April, May. We try to go around. The first thing we do is to sensitize the rural areas, especially the rural areas. We call them together. We call our stakeholder meeting. All the people involved in mitigating the flood. We call them together, Abuja Environmental Development Control. We call all of them together that, yes, this is what is happening this year. We have received a data from the Nimet, we have received from NISA, and we switch into action. We just like the professor say, we block some road that we know something is going to happen. Even though people will say nothing is going to happen, we still go there, we block it. So that at the end of the day, everybody is at peace. The only thing that we remain now is, yeah, we are waiting for the volume of the water or what is going to happen, and we are always alert. We put our boys and our rescue team on ground, very close to where the prone areas where we think flood will actually happen, like the trade mall, as the professor said. We put our rescue team there 24/7. They are there, so that if there's anything.
You mentioned the trade mall as an example. What other prone areas are there in Abuja?
Yes, other prone areas, we also put our alert there. We put our rescue team there.
Like what?
Like our boys that are always going for rescue. After blocking make sure that we prevent the control of the flood. We do that from the beginning, even before the rain. So that when the rain comes, even though there's going to be problem, our boys are also there. We use tank criers in most of the places to make sure that we get information. That information immediately there's rain.
Yeah.
They give us information that there's also rain, and they have observed that the volume of this rain is becoming. We quickly alert.
So for now, there is no specific prone areas. Or if you're aware, would want to hear.
For now, there's no specific prone area in Abuja as we are. All the prone areas, we are managing them. That's exactly what I'm saying. All the prone areas, we are managing them.
Okay. So, Professor, let's talk about the most effective flood mitigation strategies for Nigeria currently. And I wanted to add to this question, if there is any synergy between the Nimet and other sister agency to at least move Nigeria forward from this hazardous situation happening on a yearly basis.
Yeah, really, actually, Nimet is doing very well. Every year, what they do, when they release their own prediction, they enter and maintain effective partnership with sister agencies, the hydrological services agencies, the national emergency management agencies, and through the network of their offices in the various states with the various state emergency management agencies like the FCT emergency management is. What NIMET do is, after releasing the forecast, the prediction, they also generate additional information from time to time, the forecast, just like what they released last week, the forecast they have made for Sunday to Tuesday this week, saying that we are expecting high thunderstorm activities in the northern part of the country, mid-central part of the country, extreme northern part of the country in particular, which is likely going to generate heavy rain and thunder, and then consequently flooding. So when they generate this kind of focus from time to time, NIMET, they make network of the relationship they have built with the various stakeholders, so that they reach out to them. As soon as the focus are released, they reach out to them and send them. The expectation here now is like what FCT Emergency Management Agency is doing is what we are expecting other state emergency management agencies are supposed to be doing. So that as soon as this kind of information is received, so now alerts, the idea of receiving this frequent alert is for the consciousness of the people to be awakened, so that at least something is expected within the next 1 week. Have you really done what you are supposed to do? If you have not done it last week, so please do it again. That is the issue now. Okay. So, but that are the situation.
All right. Quickly, due to time, let's talk to Doctor. Doctor, what do you think? Do we still have Doctor on the line with us? All right, Doctor. So, what do you think is the best solution moving forward?
You have the short-term and long-term solutions. The short-term has to do with evacuating the people from waterways and then trying to provide relief for the affected communities. And then people should be sensitive to use sandbags and many other local measures to address issues, particularly in the rural area. But at the long term, it is largely a state responsibility, which has to do with the proper planning of our environment, particularly the urban environment and rural environment as well. The issues of development, particularly on the informal areas, should be addressed. And you see that in most of our urban centers, these people in these informal areas where they are lacking, they don't have a planning footprint, and they are just building without the approval of the agency responsible for that, which is the state urban development agencies. So most of those development should be avoided, and waterways should be dredged regularly to ensure the adequate flood of water. And most importantly, people should be educated and be economically empowered, because if you are empowered, you could not just start building on the waterways.
All right. Okay. Thank you so much, Doctor. I mean, we have to let you go due to time. Thank you so much for joining us to talk about this situation. All right, that was Dr. Murtala Mohammed. He is a lecturer at Bayero University, Kano, and also a researcher on climate change and urban studies. Now coming down to the studio quickly. Professor, what is the way forward?
The way forward, three things are needed. The local communities, the local level, they must complement the effort of the government. When the alerts are issued out, they should receive them and they should act.
Okay.
Secondly, the authorities also need to tidy off, improve the funding and the enforcement of level. They have the power to control development. Anybody that has built on the waterways, that person, even if the permit was given 20 years ago, it can easily be revoked. And then finally, the effort, the data generation and dissemination of that data need to be greatly enhanced, so that as soon as the data is generated, it can easily be sent out and it can reach to the lowest level.
The local level.
Once it is, it will really
appreciate
help.
You, gentlemen.
Thank you
Due
very
to time
much.
constraint, else we'll be debating more on this topic. But thank you so much for joining us. Abdulrahaman Mohammed, Engineer Director, FCT Emergency Management Department. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Also, Professor Sani Abubakar Mashi, former Director General, Nigeria Meteorological Agency. Thank you so much. I appreciate your time.
Nice to meet you.
And with that, of course, we have come to the end of this segment of Daybreak. We'll take a quick break, and when we come back, we'll just breeze through the front pages of the national dailies. Stay with us.